My name's Colin Kinchler, and welcome to Create Connects this Thursday. Hopefully, we'll have some really great. It'll be a really great webinar, and we'll be joined with some two art form board members of the Aboriginal Art Form Board and an artist from a very successful arts organisation down in the Wollongong area. Next slide, please. So, of course, you know, we begin at the beginning, and I suppose from time immemorial, we as First Nation people honour the country and the lands that we're from, and I would like to, as a Gomeroi man, acknowledge the country that I'm connecting with you this morning on, and that is the Barramadigal lands, which is part of the broader Direct Nation in Western Sydney. Create New South Wales, the offices of Create New South Wales is at 52 Martin Place, which is on Gadigal lands, which is in the heart of the city, the biggest city on this continent, Sydney. We Create New South Wales, and my co-presenter, Taji Moore, would extend our respects to the elders and the senior people living on the lands that we're residing on now and the lands that we come from, and we extend our utter respect and thank you and generosity to those elders that are joining us today, and also to the First Nation people that we have joining us on this webinar. Next slide, please. Just some housekeeping. We'll quickly move through. As I was just introducing myself before, this webinar is being recorded, and it says there may be published online. It will be published online at a later date through the Create New South Wales website. So people and mob that were unable to join us today, here and now, can access and get the deadly information from our guest speakers today. We also request that your mics to be on mute, and that your camera, if you're not a presenter, to be turned off, so that keeps the strength of the width band strong for this webinar. And there is that better viewing experience option there to click the View Everyone tab at the top center of the screen. So you'll just get the screen of the presenters talking for the webinar today. And also there's some of you already discovered the text box to use. You know, please, if you've got a question that, you know, not unlike myself, that I will forget when we have the Q&A at the end of today's webinar, please jot it down in the text box so we can address that question to the guest speakers. And we're joined also by a lovely person there doing the live captioning. So that is a wonderful thing to have for this webinar. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to pass on and introduce my co-presenter this morning, Taji Moore, who I work with in the Arts and Cultural Development team at Create New South Wales. Hi Taji, how are you going?
Hi Colin, thank you. So my name's Taji. I also work in the Arts Funding and Development team with Colin, so we're both First Nation staff in the team here. I'd like to just acknowledge that I'm calling in today on Darug lands and pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge all First Nations people here on the call today. So with our funding rounds, we currently have 3 categories of funding open for applications. So we definitely suggest jumping on Create New South Wales's website and having a look at the different funding rounds that are open at the moment. So the 3 sort of main strands of funding for individual artists, arts and cultural workers and groups, arts and cultural organisation funding, and creative career projects. Chances are, if you've joined this webinar today, you're interested in applying for an Aboriginal project, or you are an Aboriginal artist or from an Aboriginal organisation yourself, in which case definitely jump on the website again and have a look through those guidelines to see what funding round would be the best one for you to apply for the kind of activity that you're wanting to undertake. So yeah, our website has all of the details. Check them out, have a look at the funding objectives and criteria, and yeah, and give us a call if you have any questions. But those are the sort of 3 key ones that are open at the moment. I'll just jump to the next slide. Cool. Thanks, Ian. So we're really lucky today to be joined by 3 incredible speakers. We have Errolyn Strang, who's the manager of the Cultural Centre at the Illawarra Aboriginal Corporation. Hi, Errolyn. We're also joined by Rei Cheetham, who currently works for Two Rivers in Tamworth, and she also sits on Create New South Wales's Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board. And we also have Ali Murphy-Oates, who is the Managing Director at Moogahlin Performing Arts, and also sits on the Create New South Wales Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board. So thanks so much, ladies, for joining us today. And they will be sharing with us some tips on how to make a strong application and a compelling application that stands out to the Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board. So yeah, we're going to kick off the conversation by just jumping to the next slide. Thanks, Anne. So I'll start by introducing Ali. Thanks so much for joining today again, Ali. So Ali is going to talk a little bit about how and what to prepare when you're starting an application for Create New South Wales. So I'll just hand over to Ali to share some tips with us.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Well, I want to start by acknowledging that I see there are a whole range of folks that have joined today who I acknowledge have a whole range of experience in funding applications already. I'm going to speak as if I'm speaking to first timers because I still approach writing a grant application the same way that I did, maybe with a little bit more efficiency, but the same way that I did when I first started writing grant applications as well. I also want to acknowledge that my auntie Phyllis is here. Hi. From all the way in Warren. It's really lovely to see your name on the list. And also we've got a few mob going through sorry business who have joined today, and I sit with you and I feel it too. So yeah. Look, applying for a funding application can be really daunting for a first timer. Create New South Wales uses an online portal called Smarty Grants. You have to register, create a profile, and then start a new application. My advice when preparing for an application is to get in there, start a new application, and then open up a Word document or a text document or a Google Doc next to it and copy over all of the questions that require a written response and create a separate draft from the online portal itself. So do all of the work offline before putting it into the online application. And one of the reasons for that for me is I like to bash out a draft with as much information as possible and not think about the word or character limit that an application has in the online portal. So try to think through all of the information that you want to communicate first without then trying to squeeze it into the text box that's provided. It's probably worth noting that a funding application isn't the first step in planning a project or program. And as an assessor, what we're looking for is evidence that you have ideas that are really well fleshed out, and that you have the appropriate people and support already engaged in your project or program. I know Errolyn's going to talk a little bit more about that as well later. But I wanted to speak briefly about the project rationale being the real kind of backbone of your application. This is maybe the first or second written part of the application, and it's the opportunity for you to really tell those who are reading your proposal what it is you're going to do and how you're going to do it. It should be simple and it should be informative. And the key tip that I got told, 10,000 years ago, is that assume that the person reading your proposal is a total dumbass. I will probably swear throughout this, just heads up and apologies in advance. And I say that because I'm one of the people reading it, and I'm not smart. I've just read a bunch, but what is really useful is to have as simple and as informative a project rationale as possible. One of the common mistakes that I see in that particular section is that someone will say, I am a dancer and I want to make a new work, and that's it. And that doesn't tell us enough about what it is that you're actually planning to do. Another common mistake is that someone will use that section to say, this is gammon made up, but I am Ali, I'm a dancer, I've been dancing since I was 5. I don't dance in real life, but I've been dancing since I was 5. I've done community dancing, I've studied here, I have travelled overseas and done this, and I want to make a new work. That's lovely, and it's really great that you've told us a fair bit about your experience, but you haven't told us about the work itself and the idea and the plan for that work. So a really effective project rationale should have, and this is going back to school days, should have the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and the impact or outcomes. So another gammon example of that would be, I'm Ali, I'm Yampa Walwan, born and raised on Darkinjung. I've been dancing since this age and have studied here and here, at NAISDA in Carryong. I want to make a work that is about the flight patterns of the Birrabun sea eagle on Bulbararing, the headland that I grew up on. I'm going to do a 2-week development at the Arts House Wyong, and I'm going to work with person 1 as a dramaturg and Auntie, who will be my cultural consultant / elder in residence. And at the end of those 2 weeks, I'm going to do a showing to the local community and people who I think from the industry who might be interested in the work. And I'll document it so I have a package to then present the work on a main stage in 2023. So, I've given a little bit about me, I've given a little bit about the idea, a little bit about who's involved, the plan, the when, and the possible outcomes, all in that one really clear, concise paragraph. And the rest of the application then is all about backing up what you've said in the project rationale. So it is the kind of the hinge for everything else. So so key points is get in there and take a look through the application as soon as you're starting to think about it. Do a lot of the project planning before you come to writing an application. Get the people behind you and flesh out the ideas as much as possible, and make a separate offline draft before popping it into the online portal itself. What are some other points that I wanted to say? Oh, a lot of that preparation work, and again, we're going to talk about this, I know at lots of points throughout this webinar, is give evidence. So if you're naming someone, show in your support material that they are attached to the project. Have a yarn with them, get them to write a support letter. If they're not up for writing a support letter, write an email that you can then use as well. Or, and this is something that I think people should do more of, sit down with them with your phone and record a video of them talking about their involvement in the project, and that can be their confirmation of involvement as well. And that's particularly useful when you're working with different aunties and uncles, elders that might be slightly more comfortable to just have a yarn. I understand that this is a bureaucratic process and that it isn't comfortable or familiar for a lot of people. But what I kind of think about with using these systems is that we're using them to enact proper cultural protocol. Hey, Steve.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Hey.
I had another meeting.
That's all good. Would you mind turning your microphone off if that's okay?
Yep.
I love that background. Whew. Yes. And what was I saying? Oh, it's a bureaucratic process. It's a white process. But we're using that system to enact proper cultural protocol. We're showing that folks have prior informed consent for being involved in a project or program. We're showing our ways of respect and reciprocity between people that we work with. And actually, it's a way of showing sovereignty. It's our ownership over our stories and ideas. And then the final thing I wanted to say, and then we'll move on, is that as a art form assessor, what we're really looking for, aside from that simple and informative grant application, is that we're looking for ideas. I'm looking for ideas that excite, that elevate our mob, and that give back to our mob. The works, projects, programs that have value to the communities that we live and work in is what I really love seeing. That's probably enough simple tips, and then if there's any more practical questions later, happy to have a yarn.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ali. That's really informative. And yeah, I love that point about, great ideas that give back to mob. Cool. So we'll just jump to the next slide. Okay, so the next part of this webinar is sort of about addressing assessment criteria. And I'll hand it over to Rei to talk a bit more about addressing the assessment criteria. So there are 3 assessment criteria that the board members are assessing in your application, which is merit, impact, and viability. So I'll just hand it over to Rei to share some tips on addressing the criteria and what the board looks for in a competitive application.
Hey everyone, I'm Rei Cheetham. I'm an Yampa Yuwalai woman. I'm living on Gomeroi land at Tamworth. I too went to, it was funny, Ali's story about going to NASDA and then doing a story about birds and doing a front. I was like, oh my God, she's telling my story. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about the different criteria for this. And I like to start off that also that when you're applying to the Aboriginal and Culture Arts Board, you're being assessed by Aboriginal people. So remember that we know what you want. We understand the integrity of the work and the cultural nuances and the reason why you need to be doing these kinds of projects. Could be telling your story, it could be a news story, an elder's story. And we understand that these things are important to be told. And the language you will use in your application, you're speaking to us. So remember that you're talking to us. So the criteria merit, you can look at it as why me. You're articulating why me, why this organisation, why I should be doing this type of project. You don't necessarily have to have the best and most amazing art practice. And that's a merit, I've won all these awards. But if we feel that you have integrity in the work that you do and why you want to do it, that also classifies as merit. We want to know who you're working with and why these people have been chosen and why does this make sense to happen? In terms of impact, this is why this project? So you're out. I wrote notes before, and then I just lost all the notes. How is this going to continue on your practice and affect the rest of your community? With Legacy, for example, is a really good kind of impact project. And you may be thinking, well, how can we actually really articulate what we're doing and how we're doing it when it is a small group of people and with changes happening all the time, especially with COVID and people moving around? Don't worry about that. If you make it clear points of why you're doing it and how it's going to impact community, that's what we want to know. Things will always change. Don't freak out about the data stuff. Just say, this is what we're doing. A really good thing to do is trial the project too before you go and apply for more funding. Like get the information from the community, from your practice about why you're doing this, and give it a little go and then continue on. And that's what the money's for, is to making things more sustainable and have legacy. Viability is the why now. So why does this project have to happen now? Like, it's good timing in terms of community and reaction to the needs of the community, but also you have the funding for it and you're developing the right kind of partnerships and maybe even sponsorships. So you're telling us how you've got the money and what do you need the money for. And we really want that budget filled out. We don't want people to be like, oh yeah, you know what, I reckon 30 grand will probably be really well for this project. And you look at the budget and it's just someone's wages. And we're like, yeah, no. So we want you to break down everything that you can in the budget. And also in the Create budgets now, there are budget lines for elders and for acknowledgement and welcome to countries, because this is what our projects, like, this is the basis of what our projects is. It's about community. And we want to make sure that our elders are looked after in these projects. We really want to normalise everyone always doing that in every project that we see, no matter what background. So make sure your budget is clear and precise. And if you're looking to find out where you can get funding, what like the standard rates are, NAVA has some information on there. Who else? APRA, AMCOS, Music New South Wales. We should have a link somewhere for the costings. Just have a link on the website. And
I'll also add, Ray.
Yeah.
Just Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance for the Performance Collective Agreement, and Live Performance Australia set the industry award for live performance.
Yeah, I kept reading all the acronyms in my head. I'm like, why are these letters coming up and I can't make the words? And always give the staff a call. No matter who you're applying for funding to, always give them a call. Every person you're going to talk to in any organisation is always going to give you different advice. Not different as in contradicting, but little bits and snippets for just little good tips, and they'll talk you through it. Don't be afraid about ringing anyone up about anything, unless it's Telstra, and get the information and just workshop it. Don't be ashamed about asking questions. Also, the Aboriginal cultural protocols. So there's two major protocols that are going around, and the Create New South Wales ones is based for Aboriginal artists and the stuff that we need to know, particularly about working with our own mob and how to liaise with organisations. Whereas the Australian Council for the Arts protocols are usually for the organisations to be more respectful. Like, I used to always tell people to read it. I'm like, you read these protocols and then let's talk. Like, think about what you're saying to me before we negotiate working on a project. So honestly, have a read of them before you do anything, and it'll just keep you so much more informed on how other people are doing their practice and how you can be working better with different mobs from around, because every mob's different. I think that was about it. Yeah, my main point is it's about the integrity of the work that you want to do and continue, and that's, we want to support our mob doing amazing things. And if you're just emerging, that's okay, because you're our future. I'm our future. You're my future. And I think that's about it. Thoughts, feedback?
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Ray.
Thanks.
We're going to jump to the next slide, which we will speak with both Ray and Ali. This is about addressing the Create New South Wales priority areas. So one of the sort of key areas that the board is assessing in your application is the quality of your engagement with priority areas. So I'll ask Ray and Ali to join in here and share with us some tips on the best way to demonstrate priority area engagement and a funding application, and what kind of engagement the board is looking for.
Sure. So it's probably worthwhile talking through what the priority areas are, and I'm going to do this off the top of my head. So Taji and Colin, I may need your help. But when we're talking about priority areas, we're actually talking about people, people in locations, but also like groups of people. And so the top one, of course, is First Peoples First. It's blackfellas, it's mob. Another priority area is people of colour. What else have we got? People living with a disability or deaf folks. Folks based in Western Sydney, and folks based in regional and remote New South Wales. Have I missed anyone out? Oh, and young people. Colin, Taji, do I get points? Oh, and it's in the chat. Thank you very much. So yeah.
You got it, Ali.
Mostly when looking at applications, the Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board, of course, are looking at blackfellas as the main priority area. And I mentioned this before, but a lot of the time, so we're looking at creative query projects, we're looking at applications from mob for mob, but we are also looking at applications from non-blackfella organisations. Oh, thank you very much, B Cruz, of course, our rainbow family as well. B Cruz in the chat, everyone. So we're looking at blackfellas as the main priority area, and we are looking for evidence from everyone who's applying that they actually do have engagement and support with the folks that they are listing in their application. One of the really common things that we're seeing, and this is not specific to whether or not it's a blackfella organisation or a whitefella organisation applying, is that we're seeing the kind of line that, oh yeah, and we will work with elders, or we will work with local community, and not actually digging into the detail of who, and not showing any evidence of a strategy for that work or any evidence of engagement with folks to begin with. So, as Ray said, when Ray was working at the Australia Council, a lot of the protocol work was about getting folks to understand the protocols before making an application. I would say that for us, it's also about getting folks to understand that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you do actually have to do the work, and you have to show the evidence for it. If you have to show that you have these genuine and respectful and reciprocal relationships. Ray, do you have anything to add?
Sometimes people will just put one person as a representative of everyone of a particular background or something, and that you want to tell us why that person has been chosen, and will there be more people engaged? Because sometimes, yeah, we just want more information. And as Ali mentioned before, video, so this is about supporting documentation, having that video support or having links to these people's work, that helps make us understand what the relationship is too.
Taji, Colin, anything from you?
Oh, for sure. Like, those priority areas are, are based on the need, and recognized, it's state funding. They do all that, all that stuff about data collection and finding out where, and one willingly fills them out to raise their hand to see where there are gaps within the art, all the different art sectors within the state. and those are based on, Western Sydney, as we went through the 6 of them. There's that need, and First Nation people, of course, we need to show, and through our art and through our projects, you know, I suppose it's adding to the truth telling of the history of not only the country but the state, and and the nations that we all are part of. So embedded in that is our culture, and the government recognises that, the state government recognises that. So within that, take that opportunity, and then those other priority areas, like with youth, one could have that as well, and then if you're an organisation in Western Sydney, or an individual artist, or a cohort in Western Sydney, you can describe that as well, and sort of tick those. I'm trying to not use the word tick the box, but but yeah, that's right. It's about shoring up, and I suppose those priority areas allow, I should say, the artist and the organisation to think deeply about who they're engaging with as well. Of course, it's mob and community, but then also if it's like, regional or Western Sydney, and who else could be part of your development or your performance. So yeah, thanks for throwing it to me, Ali.
Thanks for doing my job for me, Colin. I appreciate it.
Oh no.
I just kind of finally wanted to say we get to have these really amazing conversations on the Aboriginal Arts and Culture Board when we see this data in front of us, and we can see where certain areas of Koori land are going really strong, or certain areas are having like a real revival in, say, weaving practices. And so data becomes our friend then, in being able to see or advise where Create New South Wales could put a little more focus on, say, doing some strategic programs in a certain area, or putting on more information sessions about the funding program in certain regions. So that's where that priority area stuff also comes from and feeds back into. And I just wanted to raise that, B made this brilliant point about LGBTQIA plus mob in the chats being a priority area, and it's not currently a priority area for Create New South Wales. So I'm going to take that on, B, as something to have a bit more of a conversation on a different level. Yeah, I see thumbs up from Colin.
It's brilliant. Yes, very true. Deadly. Thanks, Ali, and thanks, B. Hey, moving on to the next slide. And now we are going to bring into the mix Errolyn Strang. Errolyn, how are you? You're listening to Ali and Ray there. I think you're on mute there.
Okay.
Hey, how you going? How you
I'm
going?
trying.
You're trying?
I've clicked it. I'm
no,
good. Can you hear me? No,
we
you
can
can't
hear you. We can hear you now. Yep.
Very
loud and clear.
Okay, you got me. Hello, everyone. Hello, Steve. We've been emailing this week. Nice to meet you. So, Colin, what would you like me to speak about?
Well, thanks for joining us, to be part of this info session. You yourself working down at the Illawarra Aboriginal Corporation down there. What country is that down there?
It's Darwall, and
Darwall.
yeah, I live here, work here, sitting here today. I'm so happy to be here. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders. I'm a Mununjali Murray from up Tweed Way. I think Create, you didn't say to say this, but Create is is actually changing lives in the Illawarra. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deadly.
And Michele, who's on mute, where is she? Yeah, there's Michele. She probably would agree with me that if organisations and individuals can get together a good grant application, it really has a successful application really has the ability to change artists' lives. It raises their self-esteem,
Wow.
and that's not even putting COVID into the mix. You know, once we add the factor of lockdown for 106 days or whatever we've been in lockdown, people really want to get out and engage. They want to. Hey, I never did art until COVID hit, so I'm in there making bangalow baskets, and all sorts of people are turning their hand to things, traditional things, you know, bangalow baskets, shell work, weaving, and if people and organisations can put in a great application, they have that provides them with the ability to highlight that to the broader community, to bring groups together to say, hey, let's work on this together. Oh yeah, my nan used to do that. Let's do this. That's certainly the sort of thing that's happening here.
And I wanted to jump in. I just wanted, so that's fantastic that's happening, and that's something noticeable within community. I wanted to ask, and for the viewers, I suppose, what, you know, those questions that we asked Ray and Ali before. What made a great? I mean, there was a successful grant application that Illawarra Aboriginal Corporation put in. Was there? Let's talk about that. Was there some key points that you remember putting in there that really, you know, solidified the strength of culture?
One thing, and picking up on what Ray said, and I'm smiling because I'm guilty. When Ray, and she said it the other day in the run through, the tech run through, the importance of providing Create with information about the budget. Yeah, it's great. I want $60,000, but I think you need to go out and get quotes. You need to go to NAVA, like people have said earlier, and get the amounts of money, because you don't want to be making it up. You want to say, yes, I've put some time and some effort in on my budget, and this is how I believe the money's going to be spent. And whether it's about buying lunches for elders, or paying elders, or having recognised artists being paid what they are worth, that's really important, that's all fleshed out in the budget. I think it's really important for people to be mindful of the time frame. So Create says, okay, it's open now, it's closed here. And if people miss that time frame, that's okay. We know it's going to happen again. So work, because people come to me and go, oh, it's closed. It closes tomorrow. What am I going to do? It's okay. If you're not going to get it done while everyone else is sleeping tonight, you know that it's going to come back. So get that good idea and really flesh it out until the next round opens up again. In terms of the support material, the support letters, I think they're really important. And for me, I don't think you can have sort of too many. Yes, sure, I only put in 2 in each application. But I think, thanks Ray, I think if you are known in the community, you're out there working with artists, you're out there working with other organisations, it's always good to keep them sort of all informed. This is what's coming up, this is what I'm working on. I don't need a support letter from you this time because I'm getting it from this org and this org and this individual, but just keep you posted because I might need you for another round. So keeping everyone informed that is going to be an ally, I think that's useful. As I said in the tech run through, the bios take time. The emerging artists have their bios pretty much. You know, there's artists down here, I could just list them, and their bios are absolutely outstanding. But there are also those young ones coming through, and not so young ones, but now have realised this is something I want to do. like I said, my nan used to do shell work. I'm semi-retired, I want to do shell work. So they're probably not going to have an artist bio. So it means that if you're putting in the grant application, you may have to go and sit with them and nut it out. Help them. Look at someone's already and say, oh, these are the 6 points here and these 3 points here, and and help them develop that. They then have like, excuse me, like Ali was saying, then that's a resource that they have, and it's also showing the funding body that, hey, look, this is a new and emerging artist, and this is going to benefit them, and it's going to spread that sort of information throughout the community to say these projects support not just, because down here we have some really outstanding artists, people who've sold pieces all around the world. But the projects that we run, and the projects that I have a lot of communities are able to run, yes, involve those people 100%, but also involve those people who are still at school, coming out of school, and those who are middle-aged and want to do something that they had not previously ventured into. I'm sure everyone has great tech skills. I don't. I don't want great tech skills. But the samples of work,
yeah,
the samples of work, I think, you know, they say a picture paints 1,000 words. So if you can get those photographs done professionally or get the video done professionally and get it edited, I think that goes, you know, a good way to saying, yeah, this is the quality of the work that we are looking at. This is some of the work that we've already had. This is the work that our artists have already completed. There will be challenges. It's not always going to be smooth sailing, and I think everyone knows that. And don't let those challenges put you off. Just say, okay, plan A didn't work. What was our plan B and what was our plan C, and how do we get around those obstacles? How do we work through that situation? And I've got an exclamation mark next to that because it may not be smooth sailing. And like Ali was saying, we're really addressing people who are just starting out with the application process. And someone else said, phone create. Don't sit at your office ready to like pull your hair out and, you know, look for the Merlot. Actually pick up the phone and say, I'm really stuck on this point. And any time that I have been stuck and I have phoned up someone, I always get help. I've always gotten someone to call me back if they didn't answer straight away and say, oh, have you thought about it? And it can be like what I think is like a real dumb question. And then the other day I was like, oh my God, I had to put this budget in, and I could not find, I think it was Taji, was it? I could not find where to send the budget. Such a basic thing. And then someone goes, oh, did you turn the form over? And I go, oh, thanks. So there are no dumb questions is my philosophy.
Very good.
And yeah, the wages, we've done that, making sure you go into the right organisation, into the websites to look for the appropriate pay rate for people. And I'll finish off on 3 tips. The first one is apply for a project that you are 100% passionate about. If you're passionate about whatever it is, it's going to be much easier for you to give of yourself and to give to the application. Number 2 is, I think, and some people will disagree, I think you need to have 1 or 2 people who are completely in charge of the application, the project, and the follow-up paperwork. If it's a large group, for me, unless people are actually going to be given specific tasks and responsibilities, it can get a little bit, you know, oh, did you do your section? Oh, did you log into this? If you've got 1 or 2 who take responsibility, for me, that works a lot smoother. And the third thing that I'd finish up with is really be aware of the timeframes. Like I said, if you miss the time frame, it's going to happen again. Work on your project in the meantime if you've missed that deadline already. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. So much great information there. Errolyn, thank you. I really enjoyed talking that, you know, we were talking about supporting material, in a way, supporting material frames the project, and it strengthens the project about how you want your application is, your application submission. Next, we'll move on to the next slide. I'm conscious of the time, and just bouncing off. We'll bring Ray and Ali back in with you, Errolyn, and to continue just quickly about what are some great examples of some supporting material to include in your application.
I'll go first. A good tip for how to collate and store your supporting material is create a blank website page, if you can, on your website, a secret place that only the assessors can get the link to, and put all your supporting material there. That can be the letters of support and video links and the photos. Then they're all in one place, and you're not clogging up the system with having them as attachments. Just say, go to this link for all your supporting material. And if there is a limit on supporting material, that, like, as assessors, we'll only look at, the beginning of it. But then you've just got all your archive there, and then that's actually a really safe space instead of having it in emails all the time and, oh, where did we get that email that time? So it's an archive of your support material, and it means that it's easier to access because it's not a whole bunch of attachments that we have to go through the system, and because sometimes we are on bad internet. So that's just my little tip for supporting material if you other guys want to
go. One of the things that I've found really useful as an assessor is video support material. So being able to, I should say specifically because I come from performing arts, and so when talking about performing arts projects, video support material is really useful. Doesn't have to be the highest quality, but if you can document your work when you're making it. I agree with Errolyn, professional photography is always best, but in a pinch, recording on your phone is always going to be useful for a grant application, for us to get an understanding of, from moving from the page to the stage of what it is you're trying to create. What else can I say? Again, I said it before, but support letters and confirmation from artists. If you can't sit down with someone or get them to provide a letter, at least try and get them to send an email that you can PDF or screenshot and provide as confirmation of their involvement. And again, if the written word is not the best way for that person or for you, sitting down and recording them on your phone to talking about their involvement in the work is also super useful.
Oh, deadly. Thank you, Ali. Errolyn, did you want to quickly add to that? But you were talking about supporting material before.
No, I think everyone's covered everything.
Great. Yep, deadly. Well, I'm going to pass it on to Taji. We've got the next slide, please.
Okay, so we've reached the Q&A section of our webinar. So we're going to open it up to the floor. To any audience members who have any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free to drop them in the chat or turn on your cameras and your microphone and yeah, ask us any questions you'd like answered. We do ask as well, if you're like joining from an organisation, to maybe just pop the organisation or let us know what organisation you're from. Yeah, so that we know who you are.
Don't be shy now.
Well, while we're waiting for folks to avoid that awkward moment, Taji and Colin, do you have a question to start us off with? Oh, look, there's cameras being turned on.
Taji, do you have a question? We could ask the art form board
or
Errolyn.
I can see that Nicole's unmuted if you want to jump in, Nicole. Nicole, I'm so sorry, but I can't hear you. Maybe we might skip to Michele and Nicole. Could you type your question out in the chat? Is that okay? Cool.
Thanks, Nicole.
Sorry, guys. I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Michele. I work for Community United Aboriginal Corporation. And I'm fairly new in this space. So I think for me, all of that information was fantastic, but I think it's a really good point that to actually pick up the phone and have a talk to somebody about it. So I appreciate that you guys will be available for when I'm looking at some funding, and yeah, thank you for your time.
That's no problem at all. Thanks for joining, Michele, and I'll share in the chat group as well a link to Create New South Wales' website, and it's got like direct contact details for our team if you want to have a chat with us on the phone.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
Can I just put in that link to that other funding that's going around? Just before I forget, there's cultural tourism acceleration grants that can complement your projects. I just wanted to share that with everyone. There.
Great, thanks, Ray.
More funding to look
Thanks,
at.
Ray.
No, I just was like, everyone needs to know. Okay, bye.
No, brilliant.
I'm going to read out Nicole's question. It's one on eligibility, so it'll be to Colin and Taji. But Nicole's from Murrook Cultural Centre, and they were successful in the last round. Congratulations. She wants to know, can we submit a new application in the next round for another project?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reapply, like not reapply, but you can apply, you know, in the next round if you were successful in the last round, as long as it's for a different project. We can't sort of fund the same activity in like through separate rounds. It has to be like for a new project. So yeah, you can certainly submit another application for in the next round for another project.
Might I add though, if one was to apply again, and yes, yeah, definitely apply for another project, one could write and be very transparent and to say that possibly the new project would be it complements the previous project. That's fine, and then but by being that transparent, you're informing the art form board members that it's a separate project, but I'm sure all the art form board members are aware of previous successful funding organisations or individuals, but putting in another one, yeah, definitely there's nothing in the guidelines preventing an organisation or artist doing that, but I suppose transparency is the best policy. But that's a great question, Nicole. Thank you.
Cruz, you're up.
Cool. Wallawani from the South Coast, Walbunji country. Just wondering, kind of two questions. Can one person's name be attached to two applications? And also, if I'm working on a project that you guys are, well, I'm applying to you, excuse me, am I able to use any video kind of concepts out of that for a proof of concept for a film that I'm looking to produce and write? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So thanks, B, for your questions, and they're great questions. In terms of applying, so to answer the first question about like being an artist who's working across more than one projects that are going into the round for funding, that's definitely possible, like that's eligible. I might get, I don't know, Ray and Ali might be able to talk a bit more about this, because there are often applications received to the board that have like artists who are kind of working across multiple projects, and it's just about having that that commitment demonstrated in the application with letters of support. I think the board understand that sometimes artists are working across multiple projects at a time.
Definitely.
Yeah, so yeah, showing that commitment. Yeah, Ali, did you want to add?
Yeah, that's probably a two-pronged answer. Is one of eligibility and how many projects can an applicant be a lead applicant
that's
on
what I was going to say.
in one round, and that's for the Create New South Wales funding team to answer. But I'll just quickly say that if there's one person attached to multiple applications in a funding round, that at no point does that become a strike against that application for us looking at them in the assessment meeting. You know, that's like, good on you. Sorry, that's not a very professional way to say that, but you know, it's not a negative factor for an application.
I'd just like to add that when you are having artists in your application, make sure they know. I've been in meetings where the other assessors were put into someone's application and they didn't know. So that's sort of why having support material is great. And we will see people collaborating in different areas all the time, and that's awesome. That's what we want to see. We want sustainable arts practice.
So which one of you mob should I give a call then next week? Or after Christmas, I suppose.
Yeah, who's working next week?
Hopefully, yeah, we both are. I just wanted to jump in. Just one sort of tangent on and answering that question, B, about using filmic or video footage to show proof of concept. I suppose, of course, but within the application, a sentence or one or two describing that that proof of concept to show a visual or an audio segment or sequence informs the practice that you're going into, but clearly define that. And I suppose what we're all saying is to be Ray and Ali and Errolyn saying is just be transparent within that, and it informs other practices as well. Black fellas, it bleeds over into different art forms as well. So, and I suppose that's another thing about the idiosyncratic nature of us as being blackfellas. We have that broad scope of doing things, and knowing that and submitting that, I'm sure that the art form board would definitely understand that. But just to be specific and write that out, definitely.
Yeah, and I know, B, that your practice is a lot of your practice is in screen. And so I just want to check whether or not you're asking about the eligibility of a film project with applying to Create New South Wales, or is it about using stuff that you've used for film projects as evidence for your work?
I'm working on a project down here at the moment for like Willy Wagtail kind of storytelling, but I'm trying to work with the local community here. A lot of like my family members and like other South Coast names and stuff. And I want to do like a live performance, like a play or some form of storytelling around Willy Wagtail dreaming. But kind of at the same time in writing that, me as a filmmaker, I've been seeing it in a very visual screen kind of form as well. So I'm just wondering if there's something, I'm just wondering in all the kind of paperwork and back end of it, I'm not looking for you guys to fund a future film. I'm trying to put an application in to see, how I can bring mob together to kind of start these conversations. I've been speaking to a lot of mob who have been visiting us over the past couple of months, and you know, I'm dealing with sorry business at the moment, so this is a Willy Wagtail's kind of a big thing for me. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to give too much away, but yeah, it's for the project with the community that I'm looking to put in with Create New South Wales, and I'm just making sure, because yeah, like I've been trying to look for funding with you guys, but my stuff is mostly aligned with film and screen, so yeah, trying to be serious about
and to explain. Of course, and I reckon having that done with Colin or Taji next week is going to be the thing, eh?
Yeah.
Errolyn.
B, up here at Merrygong, which is the Performing Arts Centre, they have just put on an Aboriginal worker. Maybe you could touch base with them. I think they could probably help you out in terms of, performance. They want Aboriginal performance at Merrygong and IPAC.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you.
If we can swap emails or something at some point, that'd be great.
I'll put my email in the link there, sis.
And just for others listening, the reason why I clarified, oh, sorry, Ray, I'm just going to get this point in and then I'll shut up. The reason why I clarified what B was asking for eligibility-wise is that there are other funding agencies and bodies that support film and screen work. And that would be the advice that perhaps Colin and Taji might give to B if B was asking about purely a film project, is that there may be other agencies more appropriate for funding support for that.
And this sounds like it's the research and development phase of the project, and this is the documentation, and this is of story too. So that's also really important, to be documenting and archiving these stories and these relationships with your mob that needs to be looked after anyway. So this is just the beginning of something much bigger, and this is you working out how to do it properly and make sure everyone's paid and everyone can be working together to be producing probably a whole series of different types of outcomes in storytelling. So this is the research and development exciting thing, and that's what I love to see, hear, learn.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of like, like Auntie with Drover's Wife. It was, a manuscript, and it was on stage, and then it become a movie. I suppose it's that journey, and we're all aware of those sort of trajectories and those storylines that go through different mediums. So yeah, it's worth going on that journey and sharing that journey, and yeah.
Definitely. Thanks, B, and our speakers. Did anyone have any? Was there anyone else who had any burning questions that they'd like to ask before we finish? We've run a little bit over time, but if anyone has any questions, yeah.
Taji, I think it was Ray that mentioned something about some cultural tourism grant opportunities.
I put the link into the chat.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
And that's through Regional Arts New South Wales. I don't know anything about it. I just thought it's a really good opportunity for everyone to have a look at.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll repost
No worries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. We might. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, Tashi, and and Ali was asking that as well. Any more questions out there? But I think. Oh no, yep.
Can I just talk about a process that that is completely internal, but I think is always worth talking about publicly, which is that, and I want to very quickly say it, 2 seconds, is that we as board members go through a really rigorous process of conflicts of interest. And so, I do get asked for advice on grants. If I'm having a yarn with you about your grant application, I won't be assessing it. I will remove myself from that. Same ways, you know, I mentioned that my aunt who's on the call today, Auntie Phyllis, I want to see your application come in. But yeah, the conflict of interest process is there to protect mob and to actually really recognise that we have deep interconnected relationships in communities, and that needs to be respected through a really transparent process in this funding application situation. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Ali. That's good. You know, it's shared and very transparent practice, and of course, you know, thank you. I think we're moving to the next slide because we are running over time, and this is well, you know, it's been a very quick hour. On behalf of Taji, did you want to say anything? All good. Oh, yeah.
Thank you to our speakers and audience members for joining us today. And I've shared some links in the chat today. If anyone would like me to send anything to them from today, I'm happy to send that in an email. If anyone wants to put their email in the chat, I'm happy to follow up. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But thank you.
Errolyn, thank you so much for joining us today. Rei Cheetham, thank you so much. Ali Murphy-Oates, always a pleasure to hear three deadly women talk up culture through art, which is culture. Thanks to Eve as well.
Thank you to Eve.
Yes, read my mind, Ali. Yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us, Eve, and powering through that hour. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for your time. I hope we've been able to answer some of your questions and, you know, got that ignited some passion within you to apply for funding through Create New South Wales through the ACFP round. That's open now, which will close on the 31st of next month, a few days after that day. And sorry, and we have got other funding rounds that are open as well, which is the small project grants. All that can be found there. You can see it on the screen at createnewsouthwales.com, newsouthwales.gov.au, and there's that general inquiries number, but please go and give us a call, or if you've got a few questions, write it down and fling us an email. On behalf of Create New South Wales, thank you so much. Thank you again to the deadly three sisters there. Hey, three sisters? Sounds like a story there. Ali, brilliant. Thank you, Ray and Errolyn. Such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you, Taji, and thanks, Ian Cervantes in the background, just making it really smooth today. Enjoy your day. Wherever you are, be well and take care. Hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks,
Thank
Colin.
you. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, everyone.